Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am your host, Matt Anderson. You can find me at Twitter, on Twitter at Matt Anderson _8. Tonight, we are joined by Travis. I'm sorry, Travis Davidson, and you can find him at Twitter. I was just looking for the handle. It's at Travis Skoll. Thank you for coming on the show tonight. How are you?
Man, I'm fantastic. I appreciate it. Love doing these type of things. I mean, I talk sports all day, so I mean, this is kind of right in my wheelhouse. I'm sure some of the people that are around me pretty often wish I'd shut up every once in a while, but hey, I'm enjoying it. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk football with you. We're without our co-host Ryan Ortega. We just named him co-host last week, and he doesn't show up this week. So I hope that everything's okay on his end. But we got producer Dave filling in that slot until Ryan shows up. Before we dive into Vikings and what happened last week, what we're looking forward to this week, and a big reason why you're on, why don't you tell the people watching who you are, what you're about, a little background on yourself, and then after that we can dive into the fun stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. I am Travis Davidson. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've lived here for a long time. I was actually born in St. Louis Park, just outside of Minneapolis. So, family's all Vikings fans. Grew up a Vikings fan. Oh, there he is. Anyways, ended up down here in Tulsa. Started opening restaurants when I was 24. So now I have 3 of those. Coming to you live from the Brick Brothers studio, which is just me against a wall in one of my restaurants named Brick Brothers.
Hey, I like the Brick Brothers studio. That sounds cool.
Yeah, Brick Brothers studio. So, just been in restaurants, and I've been able through the restaurants and Twitter and whatnot to be able to get involved with a lot of specifically OU Twitter, but a lot of Vikings and Browns Twitter as well. Because growing up a Vikings fan, I was hence the handle Travis Skoll. Was always, I'm still a massive Vikings fan. And then our boy Baker Mayfield went off to Cleveland, and he's really the only player that I think a lot of OU fans are willing to follow, just in their entirety to a pro organization, because he was just that. He was just that awesome, and really, I mean, he was the walk-on. He was the guy that was too small. He was a little pudgy, in college, all that. So. I think he was the everyman's man. So, Now it's funny because my Sundays, aside from having a sports bar and whatnot, I'm like, well, I gotta watch Kyler in Arizona. I gotta watch Baker in Cleveland. I gotta watch the Vikings, and then I gotta root against everybody in the NFC North outside of the Vikings, and then it's just I'm all over the place. I had to get out all my fantasy football leagues and everything. I was like, I'm in one. I was like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. There's no time.
That's too funny. That's probably a lot like Ryan over here, who has finally joined the show this evening. I feel like you guys, you clearly connected. I know Ryan reached out to you to hop on this show. I know Ryan's a huge Sooner guy, Baker guy, Kyler guy, you name it. So I'm sure that's how the connection formed there. But Ryan, how are you doing on this Wednesday evening? You're muted. I can't hear you. We're starting this show off great tonight. We'll figure out how Ryan's doing later. I had a question for you, and it was, what got you hooked on becoming a Sooners fan, Travis?
So I moved to Oklahoma. I was in first grade. My first OU game I watched actually was the national title game against Florida State in 2000. So the 2000 season, I should say. That was kind of my first game I watched. That was when I just fell in love with, obviously, being already living in the state. And then naturally, the first game you watch is OU winning a national title. And Eric, I'll be rooting for the Vikings. I'll be rooting for the Vikings. So I'll answer that question right away. I don't want to muddy the waters too much. But so I got to Oklahoma, and obviously like watched up or grew up watching sports, everything like that. And then I really started to get involved with OU through Twitter, and that just intensified my fanhood and everything like that. I've always just dove into whatever I'm interested in, and being a sports fan, that's nice. It's not, I don't have to cut out the time for it. I can kind of do it on my own time, obviously watching the games, but it's different. I can read up on stuff. I can dig into the history. I can do all that. And then I started actually cooking for some of their recruiting events. So I came up with the recruiting hashtag for their 2021 class. And then I started, one of my restaurants does, we do smoked American Wagyu tomahawks, and we smoke them to order. So I got hooked up with it's ridiculous. So I got hooked up with the recruiting staff at Oklahoma, and we actually cooked them for the team. I've actually got a couple smokers at Lincoln Riley's house right now because I went and did some more smoking for him and whatnot. So it's been a lot of fun to get to know the staff and get kind of behind the scenes. So
that is,
but yeah, it's
awesome.
It's kind of fun when you open a restaurant. Don't expect anything to be able to help you get more into like sports, but love finds a way, right?
Yeah, that is awesome.
I'm like super jealous right now.
I can see it through the camera. We finally got Ryan's mic working. He's here in attendance, so we're gonna have you kill two birds with one stone, Ryan. Tell everybody how you're doing this evening, and then give everybody your takeaway from last week's victory over the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing well. Sorry, I just had some family stuff to take care of quick that took a little longer than I anticipated.
No worries, man.
I did want to mention one of my buddies, Matt, you met him this weekend, came up from North Carolina this weekend to watch the Oklahoma game, and they brought me this really nice bottle of Basil Hayden toast. I don't know if anyone's ever had that before. I think it's a brand new thing that they're trying out, and it is delicious. So that's what I'm drinking tonight. And then Travis, I know you're a big bourbon guy and whiskeys and all of that. So I thought maybe you'd be impressed. So, no, in terms of the game, I thought it was a great game. I was there in attendance. Again, I brought my buddy and then his friends over to the game, and we had a great time. We were tailgating ahead of time. Matt, we met up for brunch. Tailgating.
It was a fun time.
Yep. And then we and it was just roaring in that stadium. It was so exciting to be back in the stadium, just cheering on your team, and we put on a good show. I mean, Kirk Cousins, for all the crap that I've given him over the years, I don't know, these last two games have given me a little bit of faith in terms of making quick decisions, navigating the pocket, making some contested throws, some not necessarily safe throws, and letting his guys make the plays. Something he hasn't done on a consistent basis over his career here. So it's fun to kind of see that happening in real time. I think, week one, he wasn't doing that. And I think that might have been the decision of, the differentiator of, potentially winning that game. So it's good to be on the win column. Like you said, Cousins played well. That offensive line played well. I think we did a pretty good job on the defensively, especially in the second half, of mitigating, Russell Wilson's ability to escape the pocket and make plays on the run. Again, we kind of shut down DK for the most part in the second half. Tyler Lockett, for the most part, was a non-factor. Daniel Hunter played well. Run game was good. I mean, it was a fun game to be at. I was very, very happy.
Yeah, that was – and to piggyback off of last week, right, you said you had an outstanding in-game attendance record for the Vikings, and that just improved again, another victory under Ryan here. So, Travis, I want to transition to you. I didn't know that you were a whiskey bourbon kind of guy. Do you have a go-to? Are you drinking anything tonight? I'm sipping on Elijah Craig. I've been on a kick for that, but do you have a go-to?
If you guys have me on again, I might do it from the Cardinal Club office. That one I've got. So Cardinal Club is a semi-private concept. So I have a members bourbon list, and I've got everything from the Lot B Van Winkle to Old Rip to all the Weller CYPB, Weller Single Barrel, all the Blanton's Gold, Blanton's Straight from the Barrel. I've got kind of all of them, and it's. I mean, oh
That
man,
sounds
it would be
incredible.
tough to pick my favorite, but I like the Elijah Craig stuff. I like the Basil Hayden stuff. Basil Hayden just went through a redesign on their bottles, which looks pretty cool. But man, like I said, Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel is one of my favorites. They do a great job. A lot of the Buffalo Trace products, though. I like the Weller CYPB. I like the Weller Single Barrel. Weller, probably if I had to pick a bottle to be my daily drinker, would be the Antique 107 Weller.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I've had that. That's pretty good. It's hard to get up here. I mean, any Weller is impossible to get down here or up here. It's a little bit more accessible in terms of like this, more generic stuff down in like Texas and Oklahoma, from what I hear. I don't know if that's accurate. But yeah, when we can get a bottle up here. But yeah, my buddy ended up buying that specific bottle and let me have a pour out of it, and it was fantastic. So love it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all bourbon's getting extremely tough to find for the most part. There are now 3 states that they won't even get any Buffalo Trace products for the rest of the year, because you think of how long it takes to
Wow.
make bourbon, and then the bourbon boom hit. I mean, nobody was thinking in 2011, oh man, I'm sure 10 years from now this thing's going to blow up and we need to start making way more whiskey. Nobody thought that. So it'll be interesting. It'll get harder and harder to find. So luckily I'm sitting on a little bunker of plenty of bottles. So I'll be
A
good.
little stash. Well, if I run out, I might
Absolutely.
need to come on down.
Hey, there you go.
Um, I know we just got Ryan's takeaways from the Vikings game this past week. Dave and I, the producer of the show, and a couple other Climbing the Pocket members, we do a show called Climbing the Pocket Final Score, where we give our reaction immediately after the game. But I do want to know what you thought of Sunday's game, Travis.
Um, I think we're just but that Vikings specifically, man, we're 1 or 2 plays away from being 3-0, and I think we played like a 3-0 team. I was probably most excited about kind of the confidence that they were playing with, the decisiveness that they were playing with on both sides of the ball. We did give up a decent yards per carry clip to Chris Carson, which could be trouble this coming week because Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are much better than Chris Carson. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much emotion was in the game from. I mean, you even saw players tweeting and whatnot saying, "Oh man, I'm contractually obligated to only go to Seattle," and it was the first time I think beating them since 2009. So I think I have that right. But we've had the Blair Walsh kick and just some bad games and even good games that turned bad against Seattle. So it was nice to just to watch the game and see the people in the correct uniforms doing the correct things for once when I'm staring at those 2 teams. You're used to Seattle being this buttoned up, just machine with Russ. You can't bring him down ever or anything like that. But no, it was really encouraging. If you looked at the schedule at the start of the year and said, okay, which game can we go ahead and schedule a loss on? I think a lot of people would have pointed to the Seattle game and said, "Man, it's just in our DNA. It seems like, unfortunately, to keep losing to Seattle." So it was nice. You hope there's no emotional letdown, kind of that built up. Like, oh God, kind of like when Rex Ryan's Jets finally beat the Patriots, and then they treated that like their Super Bowl. And of course, I know that those are two different circumstances, but I also believe that if you were to pick a team in the NFL that the Vikings just could not get over the hump against, it was Seattle. So you hope that Zimmer can keep them concentrated and focused on a tough opponent in Cleveland that's better than Seattle.
Yeah, and I think that's a great transition to kind of move into that preview for the Vikings and the Browns this weekend. We don't need to beat a dead horse. We won last week, and we're ready to go. You've alluded to Chris Carson last week a little bit. He had I think about 6.7 yards a clip per carry.
Yep.
And coming into town this week is a 2-headed backfield that, I mean, they're a monster, right? You got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and I don't know if I have it on top of my head right now, but I mean, they are physical. They will run the ball down your throat. Kareem Hunt can do a little bit more receiving than Nick Chubb, so you got to account for that. Um, and I think they're a little bit more physical than what we saw from Chris Carson, which has me concerned because the Vikings are one of the worst tackling teams through 3 games. And I think they have something of like 31 missed tackles through 3 games. It's really bad. So how do you think that we stop that this week, if anything? Uh, if there's any way to stop it?
I think it's going to be one of those things we've got to load the box and force Baker to throw over the top. I saw OBJ, I believe, is questionable earlier today, at least on the injury report that I saw. If he is out and Landry is out, that wide receiver core all of a sudden goes from having 2 studs but being top heavy to where you're looking at Higgins, Schwartz, and Donovan People-Jones being your best receivers. Donovan People-Jones has come on, especially on the sideline catches. He's done a good job sitting in those kind of soft zones back there, and Baker can deliver those balls. But I think, as big of a Baker fan as I am, I think I can admit that Russell Wilson is currently a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. I don't think you'll get much pushback, even from the staunchest of Baker Mayfield fans. I don't think you'll get much pushback on that. I think those running backs, and the difference is, since they have 2 of them, and Kareem can he's a violent runner. He'll find the hole. He'll get sideways. He'll throw his body around if he needs to. But then the problem is they had 42 carries against Chicago at, I think, 5.1 yards per carry, and is pretty aggressive. So we're going to have to keep up with that and make sure that Chubb doesn't lean on us for the fourth quarter, because that's where I feel if the Vikings lose this game, I think it's kept close through the third quarter. But then you just can't let Chubb lean on you for that whole fourth quarter, because, like I said, they're a heck of a lot better than Chris Carson.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We almost have to put it in Baker's hands and let him fail a little bit. Which, Ryan, I'll give this one to you, because I do feel like you are a Baker defender, almost to a fault at times. I know you're nodding your head no, but I've seen some discussions with you before where I just want to grab you and say, just look at it objectively. So I'm going to ask you, how do you think Baker Mayfield does against this Vikings D? And I think not only just this Vikings defense, but more so Mike Zimmer in the way he schemes against quarterbacks that, under pressure, can get a little frazzled.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I guess, my biggest concern for Baker specifically is the fact that under pressure, he does tend to make some more boneheaded decisions and like to your point, get frazzled. However, I do know that, Stefanski is the head coach over there. He runs all of the offense over there. He knows the defense that we run. And obviously we've added some new wrinkles, right? We have this kind of hybrid defense that we're running now. But Stefanski is a significantly better coach than whoever the offensive coordinator is with Seattle. I think that this run game and the passing game are going to be a lot more creative. It's going to give us a lot more pause in terms of motion. It's going to give us a lot more play action. Trying to give Baker every edge possible to have that defense pause for half of a second to be able to allow his guys, who he's got some burners on this offense, right? I mean, you got Schwartz, who's got Olympic speed. You got Peoples-Jones, who's no slouch in the speed department himself. And we have some slow corners. So, I think the way you can limit this team is by playing more of like that kind of cover 2 that Zim's been playing a lot this year, the 2 high safeties, but that's going to welcome the run game. So you really need to lean on, that interior, Pierce, Tomlinson, and Hunter to really limit that, and Kendricks, of course, that front seven, to really limit the run game as much as you possibly can without the safeties, because we will need those safeties to kind of sit over top to help with the speed that Cleveland has. And again, I don't think Odell's going to be out. He looked pretty healthy this game, so this last game. So my hunch is, he's questionable for the moment. And eventually, as the week progresses, he's going to get more reps in practice and kind of limit his workload there. So again, how you limit him is, again, force him to make the underneath throws, kind of do what Cincinnati did to us, honestly, right? Force us to kind of throw the check downs, the dump offs, and make them kind of beat us slowly in that sense, and then hope that we can, do the same to them and really, take advantage of our receiver matchup that hopefully will be strong. To answer quick, I think Joseph, who's my boy down in Miami, he asked if I'm going to let my son wear his Baker jersey. Yes, however, I specifically went and bought him an Oklahoma Baker jersey. So he didn't have to wear his Cleveland Baker jersey and get booed by our fans around us, because they do that to you. I don't care if you're a little kid, you're an old man, they're going to boo you if you're wearing the opposing team's jerseys. So I didn't want him to deal with that at the ripe age of 8. So he was going to wear his Oklahoma Baker jersey, and we'll get there extra early, and maybe we'll get lucky to say hi. So
that's awesome. Travis, I'd be remiss if I didn't allow you to speak about Baker Mayfield. You both seem to have a little bit of a crush on him, rightfully so, being Sooner fans, and he does have a moxie about him that just draws people to him. I think that's a big reason that the Browns they took him. So I want to allow you to take off the blinders from the Vikings. You don't have to think about them. Just tell me about Baker Mayfield and what you think he's going to do this game.
Well, I think, as we discussed a little bit, the availability of Odell Beckham, I think, is going to be huge. If he is good to go, then Baker can open up the playbook a bit more. Like you said, he does have a lot of speed on the outside, and, Bashar Breeland, he's not that guy. So I would not be surprised if they go after him. But I think he's what, top 3 in completion percentage. Same with, I think Kirk's up there, top 3 in completion percentage, at least over the last 10 games he is. And part of that is, you can lean on the run game, and that you can open it up downfield, or you can open it up to the tight ends, whatnot. They've got, Austin Hooper, which provided the first score last time. I think if he can get out and use his legs a little bit in play action. Look, Stefanski was here. He'd been with the Vikings for 14 years in various roles. We know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to try and use their tight ends and their running backs, play action, and they're going to try and throw off of that. They're going to roll them out after play action, just like we saw in Stefanski's last year in our system. So we know exactly what he's going to do. I think Baker can get the job done. I think he's accurate enough. I was there in Kansas City to watch the home opener, and he looked good. The problem was, he doesn't have Odell there, and he's throwing to Schwartz. Schwartz trips and falls on one of the touchdowns, and offensive line doesn't hold up, and Baker throws the pick as he's going to the ground. I saw this stat that was kind of interesting, and I'm trying to figure out how unique it is, but I think we have played. After this game, we will have played 4 out of the last 5 top draft picks, because we'll play Myles Garrett, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Joe Burrow. So
yeah, that's right.
I thought
interesting observation.
I thought that was kind of interesting. But it's and then of course Jadeveon Clowney's on the team as well. But that's one thing I worry about on the Minnesota side of things is we saw last week. The Browns put usually, traditionally you got, Jadeveon Clowney on one side, you put your edge rushers out. So you got Myles Garrett on one side and you got Jadeveon Clowney on the other. It's interesting because on a few series they put Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett next to each other. They put Myles Garrett on the inside next to Jadeveon Clowney, who was on the outside. So they targeted actually their right guard when they were playing the Bears. They targeted the right guard so they couldn't double team Myles Garrett. So it'll be interesting to see if they take the matchup against Rashad Hill, or which I would do if I were them, take the matchup against Rashad Hill, or
Exactly.
if they come over and try O'Neal's side, which obviously O'Neal's side is going to be a little bit tougher. But if you have Clowney and Garrett on one side, along with Tack and all those other guys, it could be tough. But Baker specifically, to get back on your question, he's got the talent to do it. He's an accurate quarterback. All the other stuff, teams rallying around him. He's got the moxie. He's got this, that. He's special, or else they wouldn't have taken him, and they wouldn't have brought the worst franchise in professional sports to the playoffs and then to win a playoff game. So, and I know a lot of it is, okay, they've got great running backs. They've got great defensive line. They've got great this, that, and the other. But, I mean, it takes the quarterback. The quarterback's got to get it done. So he's been getting it done so far. Hasn't been asked a lot of him, but every team, I mean, is there a team out there that doesn't enter a game against the Browns and say, hey, if we limit the run and make Baker beat us, we might win? Well, then nobody seems to be able to do it. I mean, the scouting report's pretty obvious on what to do against the Browns if you want to, try and test Baker Mayfield. So maybe it's just the fact of everybody has this same mentality, but nobody's been able to do it yet.
And I mean, and to that point too, teams have done that, like last year, the Ravens did that, right? They pretty much tried to limit that run game as much as possible. And that was by far, I think, the game of the year, the Browns versus the Ravens. I think that was, can't remember which game it was. It was late in the season, and it was basically Baker and Lamar going shot for shot for shot for shot. And yes, the Ravens ended up winning that game. I was just like in shock, because, similar to what happened to the Green Bay last week, just left a little bit.
Was that the infamous Lamar game where he was in the bathroom? Yep. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That game. Yep. And he comes back out and he leads that game-winning drive, for Justin Tucker to, do Justin Tucker things. But to your point, though, they did limit their run game, and Baker did show up. I mean, he threw big money, balls to Rashad Higgins and to Donovan Peoples-Jones that game and kept them in that game. And with I think it was a Kareem Hunt touchdown at the end to, I think, tie the game. And then Tucker just came and, knocked in a 50-some yarder again. But so, I mean, there's not much you can do about that. But he played his part. So he's got the ability to do it. So
watching Justin Tucker is so frustrating. I mean, just knowing all the kicker woes that the Vikings have had over the years. I mean, you see this guy, it's like, man, if we just had Justin Tucker for
66-yard field goal last week.
I mean, we're looking at a Super Bowl appearance, at least probably one more Super Bowl appearance if we just have the kicking to go along with it. Like, it's just madness. And then you sit there and you're like, man, he makes it look so easy. And then you get our guys out there and it's like, oh God, it doesn't even look like. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole of Vikings kickers.
Yeah, Joseph. I'll give Joseph some credit. I mean, again, I'm not going to be overly optimistic, and I know he missed the 37-yard game winner or whatever. But outside of that kick, he's been playing pretty darn well. Better than I thought he would play. I mean, he was Cleveland's kicker back in 2018. And he was garbage back then. And I'm like, what are we doing messing with this guy this offseason when you have players who are, much more capable recently on the waiver wires? Like even who was the Rojas, I think, was out there, and then Pinheiro. It's like guys who are playing well, and you roll with, Greg Joseph. But hey, he's proven me wrong so far for the most part. Of course, he missed the easy one, but I'll give you one of those misses. But outside of that, let's tighten it up, and he has. So,
I know Travis alluded to it. I want to get back to it. I think it's probably the matchup to watch the most this week, outside of maybe Chubb and Hunt versus our defense. And it is Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. And not only that, but if I don't recall, let me just pull it up quick. I'll butcher the pronunciation of their linebacker, but he's ranked first overall according to
Joker.
PFF. Yep.
Out of Notre Dame, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And so when we think about that whole tandem there, um, you talked about how they utilized moving Miles Garrett inside, so you can't double team him. I fully expect them to exploit that on the left side of the line this weekend. Ryan, what are your suggestions or thoughts or takeaways to try and stop that, or at least like temper it a little bit? I don't know if it can be fully stopped, but
Yeah.
tempered.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult. I think to my chagrin, like I'm very happy that our offense has moved this way in terms of running a lot more 11 personnel this year. I'm very happy about that. I think we're going to not be able to do that this game. I think one way to help limit this is running a little bit more 12 personnel, put a tight end on each side. At very worst, have that tight end try to chip the D end, or again just kind of stay in protection there when necessary, and let our two receivers kind of work. We do have two of the game's best, and they're down their first round corner, Greg Newsome, this week. And so they're stuck with, Greg Ward, who's phenomenal, and he'll be on Justin Jefferson. I'm assuming he'll shadow him all game. So that's going to be Adam Thielen's time to feast because he's got Greedy Williams, who I had high hopes for coming out of college. He hasn't quite put it all together in the pro level yet. So we'll have to kind of see how he holds up against, one of the best route runners and best hands in the league in Adam Thielen. And then, like I said, allow Conklin or Herndon and I forget the other guy's name. He's wearing 82. I don't know his name, but the third tight end to kind of stay in, help chip, help block, and then become an outlet, essentially outlet passing for Kirk as needed. And same with the running backs. I mean, they're just going to really have to stay in and help chip as well, help mitigate some of the pass rush. I think that's the only way you can really limit this, unless Derazak can come in and hopefully just play out of his mind, which I have high hopes for him. He was my offensive tackle 2 this year, but getting thrown in, if you do get thrown in this week, getting thrown in against Myles Garrett is a tall order. So he's probably the best end in football. Yeah. So I think that's the only way you can really do it, though, is chip the tight ends, chip with the running backs, and short, quick passing game. I mean, kind of like we've done all year. I mean, we've done a lot of quick passing game. I mean, you can mitigate a pass rush by doing that. And then, of course, utilizing some of the screen games as well. I mean, that'll slow our pass rush down just quite a bit. So
I feel like through the greater portion of this podcast tonight, we've kind of been a little pessimistic on the Vikings. And so, Travis, I'm going to turn to you. And I saw it already in the chat while they were just talking about putting up Viking pictures in the YouTube feed. But let's pump the crowd up a little bit. The Vikings just came off a win. What are they going to do this weekend that is something that we can exploit versus the Browns?
Yeah, I think, and Ryan touched on it, I think having arguably the best duo. I mean, they got the best running back duo over there. We got the best wide receiver duo in the league. You exploit those quick passes, and you let your speedsters run. I mean, the whole reason Adam Thielen is in the league is because of his speed. I mean, he tells the story. It had nothing to do with even routes or hands or anything. He went to the regional combine, and all he was looking for was, if I ran the right number, then they'll give me a chance. So I mean, the reason he's in the league is the speed. You need to get going on some slants and some quick outs, and like you said, keep the pass rush honest with some screens and whatnot. But I think that's going to be the key, and let Kirk. I mean, Kirk has been cooking. I mean, they always talk about let Russ cook. Kirk has been on fire, especially these last 10 games. He's playing at an MVP level. I mean, you can't be an MVP on a 1-2 team, but he's playing at an MVP level. So I think you just continue to let that group go.
And on a 15-2 team.
Yeah, but that's what I meant. But that's the thing. It's you gotta bring that confidence in. They should be playing with a lot of confidence after a big win at home against Seattle. The home crowd, one of the best advantages in the NFL. The crowd in Minnesota, so it's got to be loud. They've really got to get creative with their defensive line, which is interesting because going into the season, the Browns' offensive line rated extremely well last year, and everybody assumed, okay, best 2 running backs, great offensive line. That's a pretty good recipe for winning a lot of games. But their offensive line hasn't necessarily performed at the level in pass protection that a lot of people were expecting. I mean, if you look at just last week, the Browns, they didn't score until, the end of the second quarter, because, with seconds left before the half, because they were going for it on fourth. And granted, we don't have Khalil Mack, but we've got Daniil Hunter and Everson Griffin. We've got capable, defensive ends and pass rushers, and we've got Mike Zimmer who can dial up some unique blitz packages and whatnot. So it's interesting. Like I said, you think of Cleveland having this amazing offensive line, but pass protection, Baker's being sacked at a rate that is not even coming close to the protection that he had last year. And I don't think it's because Baker all of a sudden lost mobility. He's still able to get out of the pocket. So taking advantage of that, really giving them a couple different looks. And then, if you look at, each team or each game the team has been involved in, they've all gone to or 4 out of the 6 have gone to the over. The line's 51 on this game, I think, is the total points on this. It's going to be a high-scoring game, I think. I know we'll get into predictions later, but we've got to hit some big ones down the field. We got to hit, kind of on the his back foot throw. Let one go for Adam going up the sideline, or let Jet cook or something like that. And I like me some KJ Osborne on those third downs. He reminds me a ton of Jarius Wright out of Arkansas.
Yep.
I always remember that he was catching just random 3rd and 13, gotta have it, and all of a sudden you'd see Jarius on this kind of shallow cross, and he'd catch one, and you'd be like, God, I forgot Jarius Wright's on the team. It's crazy. And here he is with another. I think Osborne's caught all 7 of his targets that have been third down targets, and converted them all. So that's something to look for on
sure.
Something to look for on third down, is KJ Osborne just finding a crease and converting some big third downs in this game.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I appreciate you pumping the Vikings up. And so, Ryan, before we get to our new favorite segment of Vikings Happy Hour, give us a key to victory. I know Travis kind of covered a lot of them, but if you can find one more, why don't you give it to the crew here, and then we'll hit up the lightning round here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people like to try to compare the game this week to the game last week, right? Like Russell Wilson's better than Baker Mayfield and so on. But we're playing a much harder defense. That defense that we played last week is not good. They're not good at all. So we have 2 of the best pass rushers in the league that we're going against. We have a really strong linebacker, a capable secondary, right? So it's going to be a little bit more tough sledding, I think. Honestly, Travis, I'd probably take the under on this game based on what the current over-under is right now, just because I think that Cleveland's defense is going to play much harder. And I just believe in, the Vikings to make this a game at home, because our home field advantage does make a big difference. We will make this difficult on Baker. So my 2 keys of success is really, 1, the crowd. We have to come rocking and rolling in this game, because you could tell Russell was visibly affected by how loud the stadium was. And you heard Justin Jefferson be like, boy, wow, look at it, how loud it is. Holy crap. That's one key thing. And then 2 is, I think the offensive play calling is going to be very, very key here. We have to navigate around this strong defensive line they have. So as I mentioned, using those screen game, quick passing game, a lot of motion pre-snap. That kind of stuff does affect these defenders more than we think it does. And if Clint tries to do game 1 drop back passing, we're going to get eaten alive. But if we can, really work on, the screens, the jet motions, the pre-snap motions to confuse that defense, and the play action pass to affect that defense for, again, a half a second, make them question what they're reading, that will allow us to make the right plays to offensively to make this a game and win this game.
Absolutely. Dave, do we have music this week? Okay.
Here we go. All
okay.
right.
I can dig it. Before we get into the lightning round, I want to recap last week. Dave and Ryan had some over and unders that they went against. The first one was Chris Carson, 100 yards rushing. Ryan bet the over, Dave bet the under. Even at 6.7 yards a clip, Chris Carson was only held to 80 yards rushing by the Vikings defense last week. I thought it was way more than that. The second one was Russell Wilson, 3 total touchdowns. You both bet the over. It was under, 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson still got the case of the drops this week. You guys both bet the under that he wouldn't drop a pass. He did drop one this week, according to PFF. Dalvin Cook didn't play, so that one didn't count. And then the Vikings defensive with 3 sacks. They only got 2 last week. So Ryan was correct. Dave was incorrect. And let's shift to this week. We got some over-unders. We got some buy-sells. We got the headline game and predictions to close out the show. We're going fast here. I'll give you guys each one, and we'll just keep kind of moving. I'll start with Ryan, because I want to give Travis the Baker Mayfield one. Ryan, over or under the Vikings O-line giving up 3 sacks this week? And technically I should probably do like 3.5, but we'll stick with 3. I'll fix it for next week. But 3 sacks.
Sure. I'll take the under. I think Clint Kubiak is going to call again a well-designed offensive game where we're going to mitigate the pass rush by quick passing and screen games and jet motions and that. So I think that we'll call a good game plan to not put Kirk in a position to take these sacks.
All right, Travis, it's your boy Baker Mayfield. Over or under 2 turnovers this week? He's averaged, I think it's like, he's thrown a pick in 2 out of 3 games this season.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna even get specific. I think that he throws 1 interception, no fumbles, but 1 interception to Harrison Smith on a deep ball that gets away from him. I don't particularly. Patrick Peterson isn't the P2 of old. And Breeland's just, again, like I said, he's ranked 103 out of 103 corners in the league or something like that. It's not good. So I think he will throw a pick, but I think it'll be downfield. I think Harrison will be playing center field and come up and pick it off. But I don't think the fumble will be in there. So I'm taking the under.
Awesome. And yes, I think Bashaud Breeland has now been coined the Dakota Dozers of cornerbacks. He's that bad so far. So, Ryan, switching over to you here. We have Nick Chubb. We have Kareem Hunt. They're averaging 143 rushing yards combined a game and nearly 42 yards receiving. So my question to you is, will they get over or under 175 yards of total offense for the Browns?
I think they do get the over here. I think that they're going to press that run game pretty hard outside zones because that's where we've struggled for the most part so far this year. I think they're going to press that, and just between those two alone, I think they get about 120 rushing yards, and then just add in, what Kareem Hunt can do. We typically do struggle again, or at least in years past. I haven't really honed in on this statistic this year, but we do typically struggle against receiving backs, and Kareem Hunt's one of the best. And he's hard to bring down. I mean, he's up there with like Alvin Kamara in terms of just contact balance and being able to shed tacklers and keep running. So I think he's going to break a big one in the receiving game and probably be in that 175, 180 range.
All right. Travis mentioned it earlier in the show. Let Kirk cook. We've seen fans say Kirktober is coming. So my question to you, Travis, is Kirk throwing for over or under 3 touchdowns this Sunday? He's averaging 2.6 per game.
I think he throws for 2, and I actually think he runs for 1. Believe it or not. I think he throws for those 2. I think the run game's gonna get it done. I don't think there's gonna be I know I'm gonna take the over, but I don't think it's gonna be a situation where it's a 35-42 game. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of scores to dish out. So I do think the Vikings will get a couple passing touchdowns and one or two rushing touchdowns, but I am calling that Kirk gets one of them.
I love it. I love that. I know that he had a little scramble last week, so it'd be cool to see him kind of do the same thing, just closer to the end zone. Let's switch over to buy, sell. Ryan, are you buying or selling Clint Kubiak through 3 games?
If you would ask me after game one, I was selling hard at a huge discount. But these last 2 games he's called have been fantastic. I think PFF Eric had mentioned that, Eric Eager, he had mentioned that I think he's the number 1 offensive play caller in football right now based on their metrics that they came up with. And I'm buying it. I think he's taken what his dad has done and he's made it better in terms of allowing us to run more 11 personnel and take advantage of our playmakers. And he's putting Kirk in good position to make good decisions, which is why we're seeing the best version of Kirk right now.
I love it. Travis, buying or selling Oli Udoh being the right guard of the future?
I am buying it. I think part of this is just my sheer optimism when I need the Vikings offensive line to become something of a force. I feel like Steve Hutchinson is the last good offensive lineman who we had. It feels like it's been that long. So I'm buying it. He's just got those couple of penalties that he's had. It's again, like I said, I think I'm being just blinded by optimism on this one. I want so badly to have a great offensive line.
Things look promising through 3 games, so I share that optimism with you. I would buy if I were participating in this, but let's keep moving along here. Ryan, this is a weird one. I phrased it really weird, but are you buying or selling the Vikings corners turning around? So do you think they'll actually improve, or do you think they'll just continue to suck?
Sure. I'm going to pause lightning round real quick to answer Joe's comment here. And actually, Travis, you might want to help me answer this. Hey, Ryan, are the Sooners intentionally making every game interesting for you this year? I don't know what's going on with our boys right now, but they are making every game interesting. But typically Lincoln Riley teams start off slow and then they pick it up throughout the year and are kind of a well-oiled machine, typically right after that Texas game. So I'm not overly concerned. I think that Spencer Rattler and team will pick it up. Do you have any other comments on that, Travis, real quick?
No, I agree totally. You talk about Lincoln Riley starting off slow. I mean, you look at a lot of the losses in his career, and they're heavily weighted towards the first 4 weeks, basically pre-Texas. So, I mean, he's been fantastic in November. He's been fantastic at least through the back half of October. The records are pretty glaringly different. So I think they get it figured out. I think only a fool would bet against Lincoln Riley figuring out how to score points. I think the track record speaks for itself. I do think it's interesting because, in 2018 when we're winning games, 41 to 38 or something like that, everybody's like, oh man, this team's so killer, but we win by the same margin, but it's defense. People don't grade teams with their own eyes based on defense. They always want to know how many points did you score, how explosive did you look, and that's just people look through an offensive lens. So I think we open it up a little bit. I think there's a lot of revenge going to Kansas State. I think paired with the Spencer Rattler boos and calling for the backup and all this and all the players kind of standing with him, I think they also need a road game maybe. I think they need to get out of Norman and go. I mean, Lincoln Riley has been impeccable on the road throughout his career. So I think they get it figured out a little bit this week.
Perfect. All right, back to your question. Sorry, I just saw Joseph commented. So Vikings corners turning it around. I was a big fan of the Breland signing. I'm very disappointed how he's been playing so far, considering Zim's supposed to be this CB whisperer as it were. So seeing that is quite disappointing. But I think they do turn it around. I think Patrick Peterson's played relatively well. I mean, I know he hasn't been shut down or anything, but he's played relatively well. Mackenzie Alexander, I think, has held his own. And what I do want to see is I want to see some Cam Dantzler. I know he's been kind of this pouty, bitch on the sidelines or whatever, but, I want to see him, get his shot because, when he played against Cardinals in the limited action he had, I think that he did well. So I want to see more of him if Breeland continues to stink. And but overall, I think the group as a whole will turn it around and be better. So I'll buy that. Yeah.
Joseph, I'm gone next weekend or next week for this show. Ryan is hosting, so you very much will probably get a Vikings Sooners happy hour, and maybe Ryan will bring Travis back, and y'all can just yuck it up that way.
I'm all
Travis, I
about
got
it.
one more buy sell for you. It's Tyler Conklin. I've seen a lot of clips on Twitter of his blocking of just straight up DNs, right? Like he's just mauling these guys, but he's also been a contributor in the pass game. So are you buying or selling Tyler Conklin, or as some people like to call Tyler Gronklin, through 3 games?
I'm buying for sure. I might be buying at a premium at this rate. It's one of those things you see him on the roster early, and you're like, okay, this is quite obvious. You watch some of his film and whatnot. He's being brought in as like blocking tight end. This is what Stefanski wants to block in his zone runs and everything like that. So when you see, okay, Rudolph's gone, we're all in on Irv Smith. And Irv Smith goes down, and you're like, oh god, now we got this guy we brought in to block, who's going to be, a vital cog in the passing game. And man, is he impressed. What was he, 7 targets, or caught 7 balls for 70 and a touchdown last week? I mean, it's, I think that's about as breakout as a game as it gets, because Seattle's linebackers are good. They've got an overpaid one, but other than that, their linebackers are pretty good. So having them lined up on him, and him just being able to muscle him out on some stuff. I was impressed by his hands, that's for sure. Because, like I said, when I first saw him on the roster and kind of watching things, I was like, man, I think they're mainly bringing him in, to help block in the run game and things like that. He's not going to see the field much as a pass catcher on passing downs because we had Herb. So I was like, yeah, I've been wildly impressed. So I'm buying.
Yeah, and I see some folks in the comments as well saying they're down. They're going to buy some Conklin stock here. And I made a post just the other day about I can see why the Vikings were so excited about Irv Smith Jr. in this offense. I don't think he'd be as impactful blocking as Conklin is, but I do
He's a good
see
blocker in his
why.
own right, though. Yeah, he's a good blocker
Yeah,
in his own right.
yeah, absolutely, and that's why I think that the Vikings were definitely exciting for him. So not having him this year is surely a disappointment. But let's keep moving along. Travis is the guest on this show, and we're switching over to the headline game within this lightning round. I give you a headline for Monday's paper here in the Star Tribune, the Pioneer Press, wherever. Maybe it's even in Cleveland, who knows? But you tell me what happens in the game to get us to that headline. So you can choose between what could have been or respect your elders.
Ooh. I think I'd go with respect your elders. It's going to be respect your elders. I think that Zim makes it difficult with some interesting packages. The interesting thing about headlines and newsworthy things, they have to be obvious, right? And as I said earlier, offense kind of runs the show with a lot of news things. But I think probably a lot of the media in Minnesota have been around watching Zimmer a long time, watching him not have much postseason success. They need a reason to gas him up a little bit. This has nothing really to do with my score prediction. I like the headline better. I think it is more of a realistic headline with how media and newspapers think.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, that leaves you with what could have been.
Oh, I don't want to go negative, but I'm going to go negative.
It's up to interpretation. You could go positive, so this is just your own doing at this point.
It is my own doing, but I'm going to, because it just makes too much sense, just given the dynamics. So Vikings lose on an extra point made by Chase McLaughlin. Is that his last name, McLaughlin? who was our
Yeah.
practice squad kicker for 4 or 5 weeks last year, and we did not decide to keep him over Dan Bailey. And Kevin Stefanski, who could have been the head coach here if we didn't win that Saints game back in the playoffs when we played the Saints, gets revenge against his old team for not making him the head coach. So it's kind of a two-pronged what could have been, because that could have been our kicker and our head coach. Hate to be negative, I'm sorry, but
Man, I'm
it
rooting for
made too much
Travis.
sense.
It could be what could have been like, I don't know, Kirk goes 28 for 29 or something, and his 29th pass, ricocheted off Conklin's hands or something, and he could have
been
had
the perfect
most
game.
completions in NFL history without an incompletion. Something like that. What could have been. So that it's
Take note, Ryan.
I like
Take
your
note of
positivity.
Travis's
I like the
optimism.
positivity. Yeah.
All right, Dave, come on out here. We got prediction round here, and then we'll sum it up here. So just a recap on the season. Ryan is 2-1 because he went against us week 2 with the Cardinals. I'll let that go after this week. Dave is 0-3, but it was a sacrificial 0-3. He picked the Seahawks last week to jinx them. It worked. Congratulations, Dave. I'm sorry it doesn't reflect on the scoreboard. Mary
I'll take
was
it
our
anyways.
You martyr.
Mary was our honorary guest last week. She guessed correctly with the Seahawks losing, the Vikings winning. So that puts the guest total at 1-2. And hosts of this show, I am a homer through and through. I am the same record as our Minnesota Vikings, 1-2. I expect to finish the same record that they do this season. So, Ryan, I'll start with you. Prediction for this week. Score. Yeah. Score and who wins.
Oh, why do you start with me? I'm gonna put my home record. Yeah, I'm gonna put my home record, or in terms of my in-person game record, because I will be at the game again this week. I'm gonna chalk an L up for us, and my in-game record. I just think that their run game, I think they're going to stay on the field longer, not allow Kirk to kind of get in rhythm. I think that their defense is going to be a little more tighter than what we're used to seeing over these last 2-3 weeks. And I think Baker, I think it's a close game, but I think Baker gets it done 21-20. With, like I said, the last second or the McLaughlin making that extra point to win the game.
You are speaking this headline into existence, and I don't like you for it. I'm gonna switch to Dave here before we go to Travis. Dave, what is your prediction this weekend?
Vikings lose. Same reason as last week.
Shit. Oh, okay. I like that.
Hey,
better.
if I can sacrifice, I will sacrifice all season long.
Dave wants
Vikings
to go to
lose.
0-4.
Say the score is. But I did get the Vikings score correct, if you remember. If I remember correctly, I did get their score. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, pretty similar. And we'll lose like 34-31. I do believe Mike Zimmer, as I discussed earlier in the weeks, come down with the checklist on how, especially Bashad Breeland, I wish they would get Dantzler in there, how they might play that a little bit better. It's going to be rough if OBJ's out. They're going to, obviously, Cleveland will focus on a running game. Tomlinson played better last week, even though you don't see that in the stats. He did. The Vikings very well could shut that down. 8 people in the box bring Harrison up, especially if OBJ is out. I'm not afraid of Peoples-Jones. He's had a lousy season so far. I hope that continues. And pressure and a home crowd in U.S. Bank are going to ruffle Baker Mayfield. However, to keep the streak going, I'm picking the Browns because I want them to lose. So I'm picking the Browns to win.
I can appreciate that, Dave, and I like the sacrificial take you're taking there. Travis, before you give your prediction, I want to give you one more opportunity here with everybody listening, whether it's live right now on YouTube or when this goes live Thursday on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, where they can find you. Pump yourself up. Give yourself a minute here to just kind of talk about you, and then hit us with your score prediction.
Yeah, first and foremost, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'd love to be back on. I love doing this kind of thing. Like I said, just talk about sports all day. Might as well do it with guys that know what they're talking about. So, I'm at Travis Skoll on Instagram, Twitter. Super easy to find. I mainly talk about sports and food. So if you like pictures of food and talk about sports, I'm probably your guy. But other than that, I'm a restaurant owner here in Tulsa, South Tulsa, Bixby. So if you're in town, look me up. Let me feed you, and send you home happy. So my prediction. Man, I've gone back and forth on this so much, but I feel like I think we're giving up 26.5 points a game. I think it's going to stay right at that. I think Cleveland scores 27 on us, a few touchdowns, and 2 field goals. I do feel like we come up 1 field goal short of tying and score 24 points. I think it is 27-24. Cleveland Browns. I tend to trust Vegas, maybe too often, but they do what they do for a reason. So, as those of you that know the lines and can do math, that is right at the total points that Vegas is projecting, and then Cleveland is favored by it's moved everywhere from 0.5 point to 2.5. I think it's at 1.5 right now. So. That's what I'm going with. 27 for the Cleveland Browns, aka the Fighting Baker Mayfields, and 24 for the Norsemen.
Well, now I was going to do it anyway, but now I just feel obligated to pick the Vikings because we just went, all 3 of you just went the other way.
Well, Dave's saying we're going to win by saying we're going to. He's picking us to lose.
It's a superstitious attempt that I can appreciate. I will go to a fault, the Vikings winning here. I think it'll be 28-20. I do think it's a close game, but I think Zimmer is just too much to handle for Baker Mayfield. And I do trust the defensive line to kind of shut down or at least contain Chubb and Hunt, especially if Anthony Barr is back. So that is my prediction. The only one on this show to predict a Vikings victory this weekend. Actually, besides Mary and I, we're the only ones to pick a Vikings victory correct this year. So take that for what it's worth. Travis, I want to thank you. Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, whatever. Travis, I want to thank you for hopping on. For everyone listening in the chat or live on the podcast, or not live on the podcast, but the podcast that comes out on Thursday, you can find him at Travis Skoll on Twitter and Instagram. It's the quest to 6,000 followers on Twitter, so make sure you get out there. Follow him. Pizza, Sooners, Vikings. There's not a better combination, really. At least the Sooners win, unlike the Gophers. And then as for next week, I will not be here. So Ryan, co-host, recently named, even though he showed up late, will be handling the show next week. No idea what he's got prepared. I'll send him my prediction sometime next week for that game. But that's all I have tonight. I think Flip and Eric will be back tomorrow for Vikings Hot Takes.
They will.
And then you can see Dave and his buddy, I forget the name, on Saturday.
Darren Campbell, Soup Campbell.
Darren Campbell for Old Two Bloggers. And then come back on Sunday after a Vikings victory, fingers crossed, with Flip, Jason, and Dave. I will not be on that show either. And hit up CTP Final Score. So to everybody who hung out with us tonight, I appreciate it. And Skol Vikes.
Hey, before we leave, I want to give you a quick hint. One of the questions tomorrow night on Viking Hot Takes is, are the Vikings better without Dalvin Cook?
No.
That should be an interesting answer. And if anybody wants to submit an extra point, contact me and send me your video asking the question. With that, what do we say, guys?
Skull Vikes.
Skull.
Skull.
Go, baby! Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.